The headlights caught something wrong in the roadside ditch. I slammed the brakes, heart hammering. That jacket. I knew that jacket. My son Danny lay twisted in the mud face, swollen beyond recognition, barely breathing. I dropped to my knees, screaming his name. His eyes fluttered open, blood bubbling at his lips. He gripped my hand with what little strength remained. His whisper was raw, desperate, each word costing him everything. Mom, it was my wife's father. Said our poor blood is disgusting. Pushed me. Then his eyes rolled back. My hands shook so badly I could barely dial 911. The operator's voice sounded distant, muffled like she was underwater. I heard myself giving the location, my words tumbling over each other. Route 47 near the old Miller farm. My son, hurry. Please God, hurry. I pressed my jacket against the worst of the bleeding on his head. His chest rose and fell in shallow, rattling breaths. Each one sounded like it might be his last. The mud soaked through my jeans as I knelt beside him, holding his cold hand, begging him to stay with me. The ambulance seemed to take forever. In reality, it was probably 12 minutes. 12 minutes that aged me 12 years. The paramedics moved fast, asking questions I barely heard. How long had he been here? What happened? Was he conscious? When I found him, I tried to answer, but my voice kept breaking. They loaded him onto the stretcher, started an IV right there in the ditch, talking to each other in urgent medical shorthand. I couldn't understand. I climbed into the ambulance behind them. One of the paramedics, a young woman with kind eyes, put her hand on my shoulder. We've got him, ma'am. Just hold on. The ride to County General was a blur of flashing lights and radio chatter. They cut away Danny's clothes, revealing the full extent of his injuries. Bruises covered his torso in shades of purple and black. His left arm bent at an unnatural angle. Blood matted his dark hair. I kept thinking about what he'd said. It was my wife's father, Richard Hastings. Said our poor blood is disgusting. Pushed me. Richard Hastings, who owned half the commercial real estate in the county. Richard Hastings, who sat on the hospital board and the mayor's advisory committee. Richard Hastings, whose daughter Amanda had married my son 2 years ago in a wedding that cost more than I'd earned in 5 years, working as a home health aide. The emergency room exploded into controlled chaos when we arrived. Doctors and nurses swarmed around Danny's gurney. I heard fragments of their assessments. Severe head trauma, possible skull fracture, broken ribs, punctured lung, internal bleeding, prep for surgery. A nurse tried to guide me to the waiting room. I refused to let go of Danny's hand until they wheeled him through the doors marked authorized personnel only. Then I stood there covered in mud, and my son's blood staring at those doors, feeling more helpless than I'd ever felt in my 67 years. I called my older brother, Frank. He answered on the second ring, his voice thick with sleep. It was 2 a.m. Frank, it's Danny. Someone tried to kill him. You need to come. I heard rustling his wife's voice in the background, asking what was wrong. I'm leaving now, Frank said. Laura, what happened? Richard Hastings pushed him off a cliff. Danny told me before he passed out. Frank, it's bad. They're operating now. I'll be there in 2 hours. Don't talk to anyone until I get there. Frank understood. He'd always understood. We'd grown up poor in a town that punished poverty like it was a moral failing. Our mother Helen had raised us alone after our father walked out, working double shifts at the diner, teaching us to be smart, to be careful to document everything, because nobody would believe us over people with money. I called Danny's wife next. Amanda answered after 6 rings, her voice annoyed. Laura, it's 2 a.m. Amanda, Danny's been hurt. He's in surgery at County General. You need to come now. There was a pause, too long of a pause. What happened? He fell. At least that's what it's supposed to look like. Amanda, he told me, your father pushed him. Another pause. Then her voice went cold flat. That's ridiculous. I'll be there soon. She hung up before I could say anything else. I sat in the waiting room watching the clock. 3 a.m. 4. A doctor came out at 4:30, still in surgical scrubs, exhaustion etched into his face. "Mrs. Walker, your son is out of surgery. We've repaired the punctured lung and stopped the internal bleeding. He has 3 broken ribs, a fractured skull, and significant brain swelling. The next 72 hours are critical." "Can I see him?" "Soon. He's in recovery now." Amanda arrived at 5, dressed in clothes that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Designer jeans, cashmere sweater, expensive leather boots. Her blonde hair was perfect makeup, flawless, despite the early hour. She looked at my muddy clothes with barely concealed disgust. "Where is he?" "Recovery. They'll let us see him soon." She sat 3 chairs away from me, pulling out her phone, typing rapidly. I watched her. This woman. My son had fallen in love with this woman whose father had just tried to murder him. Her face showed no emotion. No tears, no fear. Just irritation, like Danny's near death was an inconvenience. "Amanda, Danny told me what happened. Your father pushed him off Eagle Point. Why?" She didn't look up from her phone. "Danny had an accident hiking. That's all. He must have been confused from the head injury." "He wasn't confused. He was crystal clear." "What does your father have against him?" "This is inappropriate, Lara. Danny's hurt and you're making wild accusations." Before I could respond, the elevator doors opened and Richard Hastings stepped out. He was tall, silver-haired, wearing an expensive suit despite the hour. He commanded the room just by entering it. The night shift nurses straightened up, suddenly deferential. He had that effect on people. Money and power radiated from him like cologne. His eyes found mine, and something flickered there. Contempt, calculation. "Amanda, darling." He embraced his daughter, then turned to me with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Mrs. Walker, I'm so sorry about Danny." Amanda called me. "Such a terrible accident." "It wasn't an accident." His expression didn't change. Head injuries can cause confusion. I'm sure Danny will remember correctly once he recovers. If he recovers. The threat was barely veiled. My hands clenched into fists. Richard spoke to a passing doctor like they were old friends. They probably were. He sat on the hospital board. He'd donated money for the new pediatric wing. His name was literally on a plaque in the lobby. Frank arrived at 6, still wearing his construction clothes from the day before, smelling like sawdust and honest work. He took one look at the scene, and his jaw tightened. My brother was 59, built like a brick wall from decades of manual labor, with a face that had seen its share of fights. He pulled me aside. "That's Richard Hastings." "Yes. And the Ice Princess." "Amanda. We need to talk. Privately." We found a small consultation room. Frank closed the door. "Tell me everything Danny said." Exact words. I repeated it. Frank pulled out his phone and started making notes. "Okay. We document everything from here on out. Every conversation. Every interaction. Mom taught us right." "Did anyone else hear Danny say it?" "Just me. He passed out right after. We need him to tell the police as soon as he wakes up. If Richard's as connected as I think, the police might not help. Then we do what Mom would do. We gather evidence ourselves. But smart. Legal. They let us see Danny at 7. He lay in intensive care, connected to machines that beeped and hummed. Tubes ran from his arms, his chest. His face was swollen, discolored, barely recognizable, but he was breathing. He was alive. I took his hand, careful of the IV. "I'm here, baby. Mom's here." His eyes moved beneath closed lids. His fingers twitched in mine. Amanda stood on the other side of the bed, staring at her phone. Richard appeared in the doorway, watching us all with those calculating eyes. "The police will want to investigate the scene at Eagle Point," I said. "It's an attempted murder." Richard's voice was smooth, reasonable. "It's an unfortunate hiking accident, Mrs. Walker. These things happen. The trail can be treacherous. I'm sure the investigation will confirm that." "Investigation?" "Right. The one you'll control." I don't control the police, Mrs. Walker. His smile was thin. I simply have faith in their professionalism. At 10 in the morning, Danny's eyes opened, just for a moment. He looked at me, recognition flickering. His lips moved. I leaned in close. Danny, I'm here. Tell me what happened. Who pushed you? His voice was barely a whisper, hoarse, damaged. Richard wanted me to sign papers, change my will. I refused. He got angry. Amanda knew. She walked away before. She let it happen. My heart stopped. I looked at Amanda. She'd heard. Her face had gone pale. Danny, we need to tell the police. Tried to kill me, Mom. Said our family is trash. Said his bloodline won't be contaminated by poverty. Then his eyes closed again, the brief moment of consciousness fading. I turned to Amanda. You heard him. You knew your father was going to hurt him. Amanda's mask cracked. Just for a second. Then she straightened her voice cold and clear. You'll never prove anything. It's his word against my father's. Who do you think people will believe? A man with a head injury, or one of the most respected businessmen in the state? She stepped closer, her voice dropping. Daddy said it was the only way. Your family is a stain on ours. We have a reputation to protect. Danny was supposed to sign everything over first, but he got suspicious. This was Plan B. I couldn't breathe. This woman who'd stood in a church and promised to love my son had just admitted she'd let her father try to murder him. You're insane. Both of you. Richard appeared in the doorway with 2 security guards. Mrs. Walker has become disruptive. Please escort her from the building. Amanda is understandably emotional and needs space to be with her husband. No, I'm not leaving my son. You are. Or you'll be arrested for trespassing. Frank tried to intervene, but more security arrived. They walked us out of the ICU, out of the building, into the parking lot. I stood there shaking with rage and helplessness, watching through the windows as Richard and Amanda stood over my son's hospital bed. We're going to the police, Frank said. Right now. Frank drove us straight to the police station. Detective James Walsh took our statement in a small, windowless room that smelled like stale coffee and desperation. He was maybe 45 with tired eyes and a wedding ring that had worn a groove into his finger. He listened while I told him everything. Danny's words, Amanda's admission, Richard's threats. I watched his expression change as I mentioned Richard Hastings. Mr. Hastings is a respected member of this community, Detective Walsh said carefully. He's on the mayor's advisory board. He's donated substantially to the Police Benevolent Fund. So you're not going to investigate? I'm saying we need more than accusations from a man with severe head trauma and an upset mother. Your son's injuries are consistent with a hiking fall. Eagle Point is a dangerous trail. People get hurt there every year. He told me his father-in-law pushed him. Amanda admitted they planned it. Did anyone else hear these statements? No, but then it's hearsay. Without witnesses or physical evidence, Mrs. Walker, this is a family dispute. Frank leaned forward. A man nearly died. You're not even going to look into it. I'll file a report. We'll send someone to examine the scene. But I'm telling you now, without concrete evidence, this won't go anywhere. We left the station with a case number and nothing else. In the car, Frank hit the steering wheel hard enough to hurt his hand. They're protecting him. The whole system is protecting him. Mom warned us this would happen. Yeah, she did. So what would Mom do next? I thought about our mother who'd spent her life fighting systems designed to keep people like us down. She'd document everything, gather evidence ourselves, not rely on people who won't help. Then that's what we do. We drove to Eagle Point. The cliff trail wound through dense pine forest, rising steadily for 2 miles before reaching the overlook. It was beautiful up there, with views that stretched for 30 miles. It was also dangerous. The drop was nearly 200 feet onto rocks below. Frank had brought his camera. He photographed everything. The trail, the cliff edge. He found scuff marks in the dirt near the drop-off that suggested a struggle. He found Danny's phone smashed on the rocks below and carefully climbed down to retrieve it. "Look at this." Frank showed me gouges in the earth. "These are fresh. Someone dug their heels in trying to stop from being pushed." "Can we prove that in court?" "I don't know, but I'm documenting it." We spent 2 hours up there photographing, measuring, taking samples of disturbed earth. Frank had learned to be thorough from construction work where details mattered. Every angle, every mark. But when we got back to the car, we saw that official investigators had already been there. Yellow police tape fluttered in the breeze. A sign indicated the scene had been examined and cleared. The official report would call it an accident. I knew it would. My phone rang. County General. Danny had coded twice. They'd brought him back, but his brain swelling had increased dramatically. They wanted to transfer him to a better facility. "Which facility?" I asked. "Hastings Memorial. It's a private hospital with an excellent neurology department." Hastings Memorial, named after Richard's family, where he sat on the board of directors. "No, absolutely not. Keep him at County General." "Mrs. Walker, your son needs specialized care we can't provide. The transfer is in his best medical interest." "Who ordered the transfer?" "His wife, Amanda Hastings Walker. She has medical power of attorney." Of course she did. I'd forgotten about that. Danny had signed those papers last year before things turned bad when he still trusted his wife. "This is a mistake. Please don't move him." "The ambulance is already here. I'm sorry, Mrs. Walker." They hung up. By the time Frank and I got back to County General, Danny was gone. Transferred. Out of reach. I tried to follow the ambulance to Hastings Memorial. When I arrived, security stopped me at the entrance. A supervisor appeared, a middle-aged woman with a clipboard and an apologetic expression. "Mrs. Walker, I'm afraid you're not on the approved visitor list." "That's my son. I'm his mother." "Mrs. Hastings Walker has requested restricted visitation. Only immediate family members she's approved." "I am immediate family." "I'm sorry. Those are our instructions. If you try to enter the building, we'll be forced to call the police." I stood in that parking lot staring up at the building, where my son lay dying, unable to reach him. Amanda had locked me out. Richard had him exactly where he wanted him. Frank pulled me back to the car. "We need a different approach. Breaking in won't help Danny." 2 days later, an envelope arrived at my house via courier. Inside was a restraining order. Amanda had filed it, claiming I'd harassed and threatened her. The order forbade me from coming within 500 feet of Amanda or any property she occupied, including Hastings Memorial Hospital, while she was visiting Danny. If I violated it, I'd be arrested. I called the one lawyer I could almost afford, a solo practitioner named Patricia Reeves, who'd handled my house closing 15 years ago. She reviewed the paperwork and winced. "This is airtight, Laura. Richard Hastings' law firm drafted it. They've included witness statements from hospital staff claiming you were disruptive and threatening." "I wasn't. I was trying to protect my son." "I believe you, but proving it is another matter. For now, you have to obey this order. If you violate it even accidentally, they'll use it to paint you as unstable." "How do I see my son?" "You can't unless Amanda modifies the order. I'm sorry." The next day, Frank did reconnaissance at Hastings Memorial. He couldn't get inside, but he watched from the parking lot. Amanda visited at 11 in the morning. She stayed exactly 8 minutes. She left laughing into her cell phone, talking about meeting friends for lunch. 8 minutes. That's how long she spent with her critically injured husband. Richard visited every night. Frank watched him enter through a side door at 10 p.m. stay for an hour leave, looking satisfied with himself. "What's he doing in there?" Frank wondered. "Why visit so late?" "Making sure the job gets finished," I said. We needed evidence. Real evidence. Frank called in a favor from a friend who did private security installations. The friend provided tiny cameras, voice-activated recording devices, the kind used for legitimate surveillance. "If we use these, we have to be careful," Frank warned. "Illegal surveillance can get us arrested and make any evidence inadmissible." Mom used things like this. Mom was smart about it. She only used them where there was no expectation of privacy or with consent. We have to be just as smart. Frank had another idea. He applied for a temporary position with the maintenance company that serviced Hastings Memorial. He had the right licenses, the right experience. They hired him to start in 3 days. Meanwhile, I drove to the courthouse and spent 8 hours digging through public records. Richard Hastings had been sued 17 times in the past 20 years. Sexual harassment, wrongful termination, discrimination, business fraud. Every case had been settled confidentially with strict non-disclosure agreements. But patterns emerged. Richard destroyed people who crossed him. A business partner who'd questioned his accounting ended up bankrupt. His reputation ruined by rumors Richard had spread. A woman who'd accused him of assault had her psychiatric records mysteriously leaked to the press. He was systematic, ruthless, and he always won. I found Danny's will. He'd updated it 6 months ago. Everything went to Amanda, which was normal for a married couple. But I also found an earlier document. 3 months ago, Danny had inherited $75,000 from my uncle's estate. He'd told me he wanted to use it to start his own business, something in web design. He'd been excited, planning, dreaming of independence from the Hastings family's shadow. Amanda had wanted him to invest it in Richard's company instead. Danny had refused. 2 weeks later, he'd ended up in a ditch. Frank started his maintenance job. On his second shift, working the night crew, he entered Danny's room to check the thermostat. He planted a tiny camera in the smoke detector housing. It had a battery life of 3 days and transmitted to Frank's phone. The footage was devastating. Danny lay motionless, over-sedated. The IV drip seemed too fast. Richard came in at 10:15 p.m., stood over the bed and whispered, "Should have just signed it over, boy. Could have avoided all this. But you had to be stubborn, like your trashy mother." He touched the IV line, adjusted something. Danny's breathing changed, became more labored. Richard leaned close to Danny's ear. "You're going to die here. Slowly, peacefully. Brain injury complications. Very tragic. And Amanda will inherit everything, including that $75,000. Then she'll give it to me like a good daughter. Your poor blood won't contaminate my family anymore." The next night, the footage showed something worse. Danny briefly woke, confused, struggling. Richard pressed a pillow near his face, not quite smothering but close, testing, seeing how much he could get away with. Danny went still again. I watched the footage and felt sick. But Frank was right, we couldn't go to the police with it yet. The camera was illegal surveillance. It would be thrown out of court and we'd be charged with crimes. "We need more," Frank said. "We need multiple pieces of evidence from legal sources. We need to prove the attempted murder at the cliff, the will situation, everything. Then maybe the illegal surveillance becomes the cherry on top that convinces a jury, even if it can't be officially admitted." I kept digging into Richard's past. I found insurance records showing Danny had a $500,000 life insurance policy that had been amended 3 months ago. Amanda was the sole beneficiary. I found Amanda's credit card statements, public record from a previous lawsuit. She had nearly $200,000 in debt. Shopping addiction. Richard paid it off monthly but held it over her head. Every piece of evidence showed a motive. But circumstantial wasn't enough. I scraped together money and hired Patricia Reeves to file for emergency guardianship of Danny. If I could get medical power of attorney away from Amanda, I could move him to a different hospital, protect him. We filed the papers. Set a court date. 2 weeks away. Then Richard's lawyers struck first. The lawsuit arrived by certified mail. Amanda and Richard were suing me for defamation. $2 million in damages. The complaint was 40 pages long, professionally crafted, detailing how I'd allegedly spread vicious lies about Richard being a would-be murderer, destroying his reputation in the community, causing emotional distress to Amanda during her time of grief. It was designed to bankrupt me and shut me up. Patricia reviewed it and looked defeated. "Lara, defending this will cost hundreds of thousands. Richard's firm is Klein and Associates. They're the most expensive in the state. They'll bury us in motions and depositions until you have no money left. Can we fight it? We can try, but it'll consume everything. Your savings, your house, your income, and that's if we win, which isn't guaranteed. Defamation cases are tricky. They just have to prove you said things that damaged Richard's reputation. Truth is a defense, but we'd have to prove Danny's allegations are true, and that's exactly what we've been trying and failing to do. I mortgaged my house, took out a second loan against the $15,000 in equity I'd built up over 30 years of payments. It wasn't enough. Frank contributed his savings, $22,000 from decades of construction work. His wife Margaret wasn't happy, but she stood by him. We hired a cheap defense lawyer, Thomas Brennan, who worked out of a strip mall office. He was overwhelmed from day one. Richard's legal team filed motion after motion, requests for documents, depositions, discovery demands. Each one cost money to respond to. I was hemorrhaging cash. Then the public relations campaign started. Richard gave an interview to the local paper, the Courier-Journal. The reporter treated him with reverence. "This has been the most difficult time of my family's life," Richard said, looking distinguished in his study, surrounded by law books and family photos. "My son-in-law Danny suffered a terrible hiking accident. We've been praying for his recovery, but his mother sadly is mentally unstable. She's created a false narrative that my daughter and I somehow harmed Danny. It's deeply painful. We understand she's grieving, but her accusations are destroying our family." The article ran with a photo of Richard looking dignified and Amanda crying artfully into a tissue. The headline read, "Prominent businessman faces false accusations during family tragedy." Comments on the online version were brutal. People believed Richard. Of course they did. He was respectable, wealthy, important. I was just a home health aide who couldn't accept that accidents happen. My employer called me in. Helping Hands Home Care had received a complaint about me. Richard's lawyers claimed I was emotionally unstable and shouldn't be around vulnerable elderly clients. The agency put me on administrative leave pending investigation. No more income. I sat at my kitchen table looking at bills I couldn't pay. Frank sat across from me, his rough hands wrapped around a coffee mug. "This is what he does," Frank said. "Mom dealt with men like Richard. They don't just beat you in one fight. They destroy you in every fight simultaneously. Financial, legal, social, until you've got nothing left." What did Mom do when she faced this? Frank was quiet for a long time. Then he pulled out his phone and showed me the surveillance footage of Richard threatening Danny. Mom would have gone to the media with this. Even though it's not admissible in court, it's admissible in the court of public opinion. But if we release it, Richard will know we planted the camera. He'll have us arrested for illegal surveillance. Frank will lose his job and face criminal charges. It's a last resort option. So what's the first resort? Keep documenting, keep gathering evidence, be smarter than him, wait for him to make a mistake. But Richard didn't make mistakes. He made chess moves. The court hearing for my emergency guardianship petition happened on a Thursday. Patricia represented me. Klein and Associates sent 3 lawyers for Richard and Amanda. The judge was the Honorable Martin Carlisle, 60 years old, with a reputation for fairness, but also for respecting established community members. Amanda testified first. She wore a conservative dress, minimal makeup, perfect grieving wife. "I love my husband so much. His mother is trying to take him away from me during the most painful time of my life. She's accused my father of terrible things. She's unstable. I just want to take care of Danny." She cried. Real tears somehow. Richard testified next. Calm, measured, reasonable. "Mrs. Walker is clearly suffering from a break with reality. We've tried to be patient to understand her grief, but her accusations have become dangerous. For everyone's safety, including Danny's, she needs to be kept away." Then they called a psychiatrist who'd never met me but who testified based on my pattern of behavior that I showed signs of delusional thinking and potential violence. Patricia tried to fight back. She presented evidence of Richard's past lawsuits, his settlements, suggesting a pattern of behavior. The judge sustained objections to most of it. Irrelevant. Prejudicial. I testified last. I told the truth. Danny's words, Amanda's admission, Richard's threats. I could hear how it sounded. Desperate. Unhinged. The words of a mother who couldn't accept reality. The judge ruled against me. My petition for guardianship was denied. Amanda retained full medical power of attorney. The judge also issued an additional order I was forbidden from filing any further guardianship petitions without new evidence and court approval. Outside the courthouse, Richard's lawyers served me with new documents. They wanted sanctions against me and Patricia for filing a frivolous lawsuit. More money I didn't have. That night, Frank was arrested. Hospital security had discovered his fake employment credentials. He'd used a slightly modified name and social security number to get the maintenance job. Now he faced charges: identity theft, criminal trespass, illegal surveillance. Bail was set at $20,000. I couldn't make it. I'd spent everything on lawyers. Frank sat in county jail, while I sat in my kitchen alone, defeated. 2 days later, Amanda filed for divorce from Danny. The papers cited irreconcilable differences. She wanted the house they'd bought together, the car, all bank accounts, and the $75,000 inheritance. Danny was still in a medically induced coma at Hastings Memorial, brain swelling, slowly decreasing but prognosis uncertain. He couldn't consent to or contest the divorce. But Amanda had convinced a judge that Danny's condition made it cruel to keep him in legal limbo. The judge agreed to an expedited hearing. A court-appointed guardian ad litem visited Danny once for 10 minutes and recommended approving the divorce based on Amanda's testimony that the marriage had been troubled before the accident. It was all lies. But lies told by the right people become truth. I drove to Eagle Point one last time. I needed to think. Needed to feel close to Danny somehow. I parked and walked the trail looking for anything investigators might have missed. I found nothing. The area had been cleaned, sanitized of evidence. But I wasn't alone. A black SUV pulled into the parking area as I descended the trail. 2 men in suits got out. They didn't approach. They just watched me. Waited until I got in my car, then followed me home. They parked outside my house. Sat there for 3 hours. Then left. The message was clear. We're watching you. We can get to you anytime. That night I went to the grocery store. When I came home, my front door was ajar. I called the police. They came, took a report. The house had been ransacked, but nothing valuable was stolen. Not my television. Not my mother's jewelry. Not the cash I kept in my bedroom drawer. Only one thing was missing: Mom's box. The one with the surveillance equipment, the cameras, the notes, the lessons she'd written down. Gone. All the documentation Frank and I had collected. Gone. The backup hard drive with the surveillance footage. Gone. Every photograph from Eagle Point, every note, every piece of evidence. The police officer taking the report was young, bored, probably just a burglary. They got spooked and ran before taking much. They took specific things. This was targeted. Ma'am, we'll file a report. If anything turns up, we'll let you know. I knew nothing would turn up. This was Richard's work. Professional, clean, destroying evidence while sending a message. I sat in my violated house, surrounded by overturned furniture and scattered belongings, and felt utterly alone. My phone rang. Hastings Memorial. The nurse's voice was gentle. Mrs. Walker, I'm calling about your son Danny. He's had a stroke, a complication from his injuries. We wanted you to know he may not survive the night. I'm so sorry. My legs gave out. I sank to the floor. I'm coming, right now. Mrs. Walker, I have to remind you there's a restraining order. If you come here, we'll have to call the police. I don't care. That's my son. I drove to Hastings Memorial doing 70 miles an hour. I didn't care about restraining orders or consequences. If Danny was dying, I would be there. I ran through the parking lot, through the main entrance, past the reception desk toward the elevators. Security saw me immediately. "Mrs. Walker, stop." I didn't stop. I ran. Got into an elevator, hit the button for the 4th floor where intensive care was located. The doors closed. I rode up, praying, bargaining with God. The elevator opened. 2 security guards waited there. Behind them stood Amanda, arms crossed, wearing her perfect mask of concern. "She violated the restraining order," Amanda told them. "Call the police." "My son is dying. Let me see him." "There was no stroke, Lara. Danny's fine. Well, as fine as he's been. We lied to get you here. Daddy wanted you arrested somewhere you couldn't claim you'd accidentally violated the order. Here it's clear cut. You came to a hospital where you knew I'd be. Deliberate violation." I stared at her. "You used your husband's life to set a trap. Daddy said you'd never give up otherwise. Now we can finish this without you interfering." Police arrived. Officer Jennifer Santos read me my rights. I'd heard them on television but never directed at me. The cold metal of handcuffs encircled my wrists. I was walked through the hospital lobby in cuffs past nurses and visitors who stared, judging, assuming I was dangerous. In the police car, through the metal grate, I could see Hastings Memorial receding behind me. Danny was in there, helpless, alone with people who wanted him dead. And I was going to jail. The county jail smelled like bleach and despair. They processed me, took my belongings, my shoelaces, my dignity, gave me an orange jumpsuit and a cell with a thin mattress and a toilet with no seat. I'd never been arrested before. Never even had a speeding ticket. Now I was a criminal. The bail hearing happened the next morning. I appeared via video link, standing in an orange jumpsuit in a cinderblock room looking at a judge on a screen. My public defender was a harried young man named Kevin Wright who looked fresh out of law school. He'd had 15 minutes to review my case. "Your Honor, my client is a 67-year-old woman with no criminal record. She was trying to see her critically ill son. I request release on her own recognizance." The prosecutor, a sharp woman in a severe suit, shook her head. "Your Honor, the defendant willfully violated a valid restraining order. She was warned multiple times. She's demonstrated a pattern of harassment and unstable behavior. The petitioner, Mrs. Amanda Hastings Walker, is afraid for her safety. We request bail be set at $50,000. $50,000. I'd need 10% for a bondsman. $5,000 I didn't have. Might as well have been $5 million. "Bail is set at $50,000, the judge said. "Next case." I sat in jail. 1 day, 2 days, 3. Frank was still in jail too, in the men's section, facing his own charges. We couldn't help each other. On the 4th day, Kevin Wright visited me in the consultation room. "Mrs. Walker," the prosecutor offered a deal. "You plead guilty to violating the restraining order, accept 60 days in jail, 2 years probation, and agree to stay away from Amanda permanently. In exchange, they drop the potential stalking and harassment charges they could file." 60 days. What happens to Danny in 60 days? I don't know. But if you go to trial and lose, you could face 6 months. This is the better option. I wanted to fight, but I was tired, broken. And every day in jail was another day Danny was alone with Richard. I need to think about it. You have 48 hours. That night in my cell, I lay on the thin mattress and thought about my mother. Helen had spent 3 days in jail once when I was 12. She'd been arrested for shoplifting, but she'd really been taking back money from her own paycheck that her boss had illegally withheld. They'd dropped the charges eventually, but those 3 days had been terrifying for Frank and me, staying with neighbors, not knowing when Mom would come home. When she got out, she'd sat us down and said, "Sometimes the system isn't fair. Sometimes bad people win because they have money and power. But you never stop fighting. You fight smarter. You wait for your moment. And you never ever give up on family." On day 5, I lost my house. The bank foreclosed. I'd missed 2 mortgage payments while spending everything on lawyers. They moved fast, probably encouraged by Richard's influence. My home of 30 years where I'd raised Danny, where every corner held memories, gone. The news got worse. Frank's wife, Margaret, filed for divorce. She couldn't handle the scandal, the arrests, the financial ruin. She had 2 daughters from a previous marriage to think about. She needed to distance herself from this disaster. Frank and I were both in jail, both losing everything, and Danny was still dying slowly at Hastings Memorial. On day 6, Kevin Wright returned. "Mrs. Walker, I have to recommend you take the deal. The prosecutor is talking about adding charges. They claim you've been spreading defamatory statements to other inmates about the Hastings family. Richard's lawyers are very aggressive." "I haven't said anything to anyone." "I believe you, but it doesn't matter. Take the deal." I signed the papers, pled guilty, accepted 60 days in jail. The judge added a $5,000 fine I couldn't pay. If I didn't pay, they'd extend my sentence. I was trapped in a cage while Danny was trapped in a hospital room, both of us powerless. My cellmate was a woman named Denise, 53, in for drug possession. She'd been clean for 2 years but got pulled over with her boyfriend's stash in the car. She was kind in the way people who've survived hard things can be kind. "Rich people always win," Denise said one night. "Systems designed for them. They commit crimes in boardrooms and golf courses, and we commit crimes in desperation, and we're the ones in cages." "I'm going to lose my son." "Maybe. Maybe not. You still breathing." "Barely." "Then you're not done fighting." But I felt done. Completely done. On day 8, I got an unexpected visitor. A man named Gregory Pierce wanted to speak with me. The guard brought me to the consultation room. Pierce was maybe 55, well-dressed in a business suit with tired eyes and an easy smile. "Mrs. Walker, I'm sorry to meet you under these circumstances. I'm a business associate of Richard Hastings. Or, I was until he destroyed my company 5 years ago." I sat up straighter. "What do you want?" "I want to help you. Richard has done this to others. Crushed them. Destroyed them. I've been gathering evidence for years, waiting for the right moment to strike back. Your son's case gives me that moment. Richard got sloppy. He's overconfident. And I have proof of his crimes." He slid a folder across the table. Inside were photographs of documents, financial records showing Richard had embezzled from his own company, proof of bribes paid to city officials, evidence of fraud in real estate deals. "This is enough to destroy him," Pierce said. "But I can't use it alone. I need a victim, a case that gets public attention. Danny's attempted murder is that case. I'll provide this evidence to your lawyers. I'll testify. And I'll post your bail. You'll be free by tonight." It sounded too good to be true. "Why would you do this?" "Because Richard Hastings destroyed my life. My business partner and I built Pierce Hastings Development together. Then Richard decided he wanted it all. He forged documents, framed my partner for fraud. My partner committed suicide. His family lost everything. I've been waiting 5 years to take Richard down. You're my chance." Every instinct my mother had taught me was screaming. Something was wrong. This was too convenient, too perfect. But I was desperate. What do I need to do? "Just agree to let me help. I'll post bail. My lawyers will take over your case. Richard will be arrested within a week. Danny will be safe." "I need to think about it." "You have until the end of visiting hours. That's 30 minutes, Mrs. Walker. Richard is moving fast. Danny's condition is declining. He's being over-medicated, probably poisoned slowly. Every day you wait is a day closer to losing him." Pierce left the folder and walked out. I sat there looking at those documents. They looked real, professional, damning. This could be the evidence that saved Danny and destroyed Richard. Or it could be a trap. I called Kevin Wright. "I need you to check out someone named Gregory Pierce, business associate of Richard Hastings." "I'll try, but Mrs. Walker, I have 83 other cases. It might take a few days." "I don't have a few days." I thought about what Mom would do. She'd be suspicious, she'd verify, but she'd also know when to take a calculated risk. Pierce returned at the end of visiting hours. Have you decided? Yes. Help me. He smiled. Excellent. I'll have you out within 2 hours. My lawyers will meet you tomorrow morning. We'll start building the case against Richard immediately. Pierce posted bail. $25,000 like it was nothing. I was released that evening, fitted with an ankle monitor, forbidden from leaving the county. The ankle monitor felt like another chain, but at least I wasn't in a cell. Pierce's driver took me to the address Pierce had given an office building in the commercial district. It was nearly 8 p.m. The parking lot was mostly empty. My instincts screamed louder. Mr. Pierce is waiting for you on the 4th floor, the driver said. I got out. The building was dark except for a few lit windows. I walked to the entrance, used the key card Pierce had given me. The lobby was silent, empty. Elevator to the 4th floor. The hallway was dark. One office at the end had light spilling under the door. I walked toward it, each step feeling wrong. I opened the door. Pierce sat behind a desk, smiling, but the smile was different now, cold. He pulled out a gun. I'm disappointed you fell for it, Mrs. Walker. I thought you'd be smarter. My blood turned to ice. You work for Richard. Of course I work for Richard. Gregory Pierce doesn't exist. It's a fake identity. I'm Richard's fixer, the man who makes problems disappear. And you, Mrs. Walker, are a problem. He stood, keeping the gun trained on me. Richard anticipated you'd never give up, so he created this elaborate trap. Get you out of jail where you're safe, and under observation bring you somewhere isolated and make you disappear. You'll have a tragic accident. A despondent mother overwhelmed by her son's condition, unable to cope. She takes her own life. Very sad, very believable. He pulled a piece of paper from his desk. I've already written your suicide note. Handwriting experts won't be able to tell it's forged. I'm that good. Your body will be found in a ravine, the note nearby. Case closed. Danny will die in the hospital within a week, labeled natural causes from his injuries. The Hastings family inherits everything. Richard wins. He always wins. I couldn't breathe. This was it. The end. I'd walked right into it. Pierce gestured with the gun. We're going to walk out to my car. You're going to do it quietly. If you scream or run, I'll shoot you here and adjust the story. Either way, you die tonight. The only question is whether it's quick or slow. My mother's voice echoed in my head. Keep them talking. Every second alive is a second to think. How many people have you killed for Richard? I asked. Pierce smiled, pleased to be asked. People like him always want to brag. 7 over 12 years. Richard pays well. $500,000 per job. I've made $3.5 million cleaning up his messes. Who were they? You don't need names. But they were all problems like you. A business partner who discovered Richard's embezzlement. A woman who accused him of assault was going to go public despite the NDA. A contractor who threatened to expose safety violations. Richard's first wife, actually, though. That looked like natural causes. Cancer is a convenient cover for arsenic poisoning. He was enjoying this, showing off his expertise. Danny's not the first person Richard's tried to kill. I kept my voice steady, though terror flooded my veins. Of course not. The cliff was Richard's idea. Elegant, an accident. But Danny survived, which complicated things. That's why we're moving to Plan B. With you gone, there's no one to protect Danny. Amanda will sign whatever Richard wants. The doctors at Hastings Memorial follow Richard's instructions. Danny will slip away peacefully. Everyone will be very sad. The police will investigate my suicide. No, they won't, because I'm very good at my job. I've studied your handwriting from court documents. The note is perfect. Your body will be found in a ravine off Highway 91, known suicide spot. Your car will be nearby, keys in the ignition. Your phone will have searches for painless death methods from yesterday. I already planted that digital evidence. The ankle monitor will show you came here voluntarily, then drove to the ravine. No signs of struggle, no forced entry, just a tragedy. He was so confident, So sure. And he had every right to be. He'd planned perfectly. But while he talked, I scanned the room. Heavy paperweight on the desk. Window behind him, but we were 4 floors up. Door behind me, but he stood between me and freedom. My ankle monitor would track everywhere I went. Even if I ran, they'd find me. Unless I triggered a response that brought help. "How does Richard find you?" I asked. "Men like you. Dark web mostly. I have a reputation. Former military, special operations, then private security, then this. More lucrative, less rules." He checked his watch. "Enough talking. We need to move. Stand up slowly." I stood. My legs shook, but I forced them steady. "Walk toward the door. Slowly. Hand me that paperweight first." I picked up the paperweight, heavy brass shaped like a globe. Walked toward him to hand it over. He reached for it with his left hand, keeping the gun in his right, pointed at my chest. Mom had taught me something when I was 16. After a man grabbed me in a parking lot, she'd taken me to a self-defense class. The instructor, a woman who'd survived an attack, taught us you might only get one chance. Make it count. Go for the eyes, throat, or groin. Fight dirty. Survive. I threw the paperweight at Pierce's face, not handing it to him, throwing it. Hard. It hit his nose with a crunch. He stumbled back, firing. The bullet went wide, punching through the drywall beside my head. I ran. Out the door, down the hallway toward the stairs. Behind me, Pierce's cursed footsteps pounding. I hit the stairwell, going down fast, too fast, nearly falling. My 67-year-old knees screamed. My heart hammered. Another gunshot. The bullet sparked off the metal railing. I kept going. 3 floors. 2. 1. Ground floor. I burst into the lobby, saw the fire alarm on the wall, pulled it. Sirens blared, deafening. Lights flashed. The building's automated emergency system kicked in. Pierce came through the stairwell door, blood streaming from his nose, gun raised. But now there were witnesses. A janitor appeared from a side hallway, startled by the alarm. A security guard from another building stepped into the lobby, attracted by the sirens. Pierce couldn't shoot me in front of them. He grabbed my arm, pressed the gun into my ribs where others couldn't see it. "Walk outside," he hissed. "Do it quietly, or I'll shoot you here and everyone around you." I believed him. He was desperate now, improvising, dangerous. He forced me toward the door. The janitor was helping evacuate people. The security guard was on his phone. Fire trucks would respond. This was a commercial district, emergency response would be fast. We got outside. The parking lot had maybe a dozen cars. Pierce's was black, nondescript, parked far from the building entrance. Away from cameras, of course. "Move," he growled, pushing me toward it. Fire trucks arrived, sirens wailing, red lights painting the night. Firefighters jumped out, heading toward the building. Pierce couldn't shoot me now, not with first responders everywhere. But he could still force me into the car, drive me away, kill me somewhere else. I screamed. "Help! He has a gun. Help me!" Firefighters turned. Saw Pierce with his arm around me. Saw the gun pressed into my side. "Police!" one of them yelled into his radio. "Active shooter, Commercial Plaza on Westfield." Pierce's face twisted. He'd lost control of the situation. He made a decision, shoved me away, ran toward his car, fired at the firefighters. They dove for cover. He got in the car, tires squealing as he sped away. Police arrived 3 minutes later. I collapsed on the ground, shaking. Officer Santos, who'd arrested me at the hospital, was first on scene. She recognized me immediately. "Mrs. Walker." "What happened?" I told them everything. Pierce, the trap, the gun, the confession about Richard's crimes. At first, I could see skepticism in their faces, but then they found Pierce's office, found the forged suicide note, found files on his computer with details of previous murders, found texts from a phone number that led back to Richard Hastings ordering the hit on me. Everything unraveled. Detective Walsh arrived, the same detective who'd dismissed me weeks ago. He looked at the evidence at Pierce's abandoned office at me, covered in bruises from fighting for my life. Mrs. Walker, I owe you an apology. They issued an APB for Pierce. Found him 20 miles away trying to flee. There was a shootout. Pierce fired at police. They returned fire. He went down wounded, but alive. At the hospital, handcuffed to his bed, Pierce started talking. He wanted a deal, reduced sentence in exchange for testimony against Richard. He told them everything, every murder, every crime, every evil thing Richard had paid him to do over 12 years, including the plot to kill Danny. Police descended on Hastings Memorial that night. They found Danny severely malnourished, oversedated his IV bags containing medications far beyond what his condition required. Slow poisoning, just as Pierce had said. They rescued him, rushed him to County General, removed him from Richard's control. They arrested Richard at his mansion at 3 a.m, charged him with attempted murder conspiracy, to commit murder, 7 counts of murder for hire fraud embezzlement. The evidence was overwhelming. Pierce's testimony, digital records, financial transfers to Pierce's offshore accounts. They arrested Amanda at 6 a.m. She cracked immediately, started crying, begging for mercy, asked for a lawyer, then started talking anyway, desperate to save herself. And that's when the truth came out. Amanda had been a victim too. They brought me to the police station to give a formal statement. I sat in an interview room drinking terrible coffee, still shaking from the night's terror. Detective Walsh sat across from me, his expression grim. Mrs. Walker, we need to tell you something about Amanda. It changes the picture significantly. He played a recording. Amanda's voice recorded during her interrogation, broken by sobs. I didn't want any of this. You have to understand. My father has controlled me my entire life. He chooses my friends, my clothes, where I live. He pays all my bills, but only if I obey him. When I was 15, I tried to run away. He had me committed to a psychiatric hospital for 6 months, said I was mentally ill. The doctors did whatever he told them. He's done that 3 more times when I've tried to leave. I'm 32 years old and I'm terrified of my own father. Walsh paused the recording. Amanda provided evidence, medical records from the psychiatric commitments. They were all bogus. Richard used them as punishment and control. We've contacted the facilities. They're cooperating now, admitting Richard pressured them into false diagnoses. He played more. Amanda's voice steadier now, angry. Danny was helping me plan to leave my father. He'd been researching how to escape abusive families. He found a lawyer, a safe house network. We were going to disappear, start over somewhere my father couldn't find us. That's why my father wanted him dead, not just because of the inheritance money, but because Danny was taking me away from his control. I couldn't breathe. Danny hadn't just been a victim, he'd been a hero, trying to save his wife from her monster father. When my father found out, Amanda continued, he told me if I didn't help get rid of Danny, he'd kill us both. He'd make it look like a murder-suicide. He's done it before. My mother died when I was 8. Everyone thought it was breast cancer. But last year I found medical records my father had hidden. The doctors suspected arsenic poisoning. My father killed my mother because she tried to divorce him. Walsh stopped the recording. We've subpoenaed those medical records. We're exhuming Amanda's mother's body. If arsenic is present after all these years, Richard faces another murder charge. Amanda knew her father was going to push Danny off that cliff. Yes, she admits that. She walked away, let it happen. But Richard told her if she didn't cooperate, he'd kill Danny anyway, and then kill her and make it look like she'd done it. She was trapped, terrified. She made terrible choices out of fear for her own life. He played another section, Amanda's voice raw with emotion. I've been recording my father for 2 years. Every threat, every time he hurt me. I was gathering evidence, hoping someday I'd be brave enough to use it. I have dozens of recordings. Him threatening to kill me. Him describing how he killed my mother. Him planning Danny's murder. Him bragging about other people he's destroyed. I'll give you everything. Every recording. Every document. Every piece of evidence. Just please, please protect me from him. She's cooperating fully, Walsh said, providing evidence that goes back 20 years. Financial crimes, bribes, murders, all of it. Her testimony alone will put Richard away for life. I didn't know what to feel. Anger at Amanda for letting Danny be hurt, pity for her being trapped, relief that she was finally standing up to Richard. What happens to her, I asked. That's complicated. She's guilty of conspiracy. She knew about the murder plot and didn't stop it. But given the years of abuse, the coercion, the genuine fear for her life, the prosecutor is offering a deal. 5 years probation, mandatory therapy, no jail time if she testifies against Richard and helps recover assets to compensate victims. Danny will have to decide if he can forgive her. Yes, that's between them. They took me to County General to see Danny. He'd been in critical condition when they'd brought him in from Hastings Memorial, but the real doctors had stabilized him, stopped the poisoning, started actual treatment. I walked into his room and burst into tears. He was awake, really awake, clear-eyed, weak but alive. "Mom," he whispered. I took his hand careful of the IVs. "I'm here, baby. You're safe now. Richard's been arrested. It's over." I heard. The nurses told me. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I brought this into our lives." "No. You tried to save Amanda. You were brave." "I loved her. I thought I could help her escape him. I was stupid." "You were kind. That's not stupid." We sat together while I told him everything. Pierce's confession, Amanda's testimony, the evidence of Richard's crimes going back decades, the other victims, the murders, all of it. Danny listened, processing his face, cycling through shock and grief and anger and finally exhaustion. "Is Amanda going to jail?" "Probation. She's cooperating against Richard." "Good. She deserves a chance to be free of him. I don't know if I can ever forgive her for letting him hurt me, but I understand why she was afraid. He's a monster." Over the next 3 months, Danny slowly recovered. Physical therapy for his injuries. The broken bones healed, the brain swelling resolved. His memory came back fully. The trauma was harder to heal, but he worked with a therapist twice a week. Richard Hastings went to trial. The evidence was overwhelming. Pierce's testimony, Amanda's recordings, financial records. Victim testimony from people Richard had destroyed over the years. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced him to 30 years to life. Richard was 72 years old. He'd die in prison. I attended every day of the trial, sat in the gallery and watched him. He never looked at me, never showed emotion. Even when the verdict was read, his face remained blank, but I saw his hands shake. Just once, just for a moment. He'd lost. Finally, completely, he'd lost. It's been 2 years since that terrible night when I found Danny in the ditch. 2 years since my life exploded, and then slowly, painfully came back together. The civil lawsuit against Richard's estate took 18 months, but we won. Danny and I received a settlement of $3 million. It covered his medical bills, my legal costs, years of lost wages and compensation for pain and suffering. More importantly, it funded a victims' assistance program for the other people Richard had destroyed. Frank's charges were dropped. He and Margaret reconciled slowly. It took time for her to trust that the nightmare was really over, but eventually she moved back in. They're rebuilding their marriage stronger now, for having survived the worst. I bought a small house, nothing fancy but it's mine, paid in cash, no mortgage. No one can take it away. Danny has an apartment 15 minutes away. He got a job doing web design, working from home mostly. He's good at it. Clients love him. He's building the business he'd always dreamed of. He and Amanda divorced. The papers were signed 8 months ago. It was amicable if sad. Amanda wrote him a letter from the therapy program she's required to attend. She apologized, explained, didn't make excuses but helped him understand. Danny read it and cried. He told me he forgives her, or he's trying to. Forgiveness is complicated. It's a process, not a decision. Amanda is rebuilding her life too. She got a job at a nonprofit helping domestic violence survivors. She speaks at conferences about coercive control and financial abuse. She's using her experience to help others. It doesn't erase what happened, but it's something. Growth. Healing. Every Sunday, Danny comes to my house for dinner. We cook together. Usually something simple. Roast chicken and potatoes, spaghetti with homemade sauce, meatloaf, comfort food. We talk and laugh, and sometimes we cry. We're building new memories to layer over the traumatic ones. Frank and Margaret join us most weeks. Their daughters, 2 teenagers, now rolling their eyes at adult conversations but secretly glad to be part of a family that survived something terrible and came out intact. I keep my mother's box in my closet. After the break-in, the police recovered it from Pierce's car. The cameras, the notes, the lessons Helen wrote down in her careful handwriting. I hope I never need them again, but I keep them close. Knowledge is power. Preparedness matters. The community that had turned on me during the trial slowly came back, apologizing, embarrassed. They'd believed Richard's lies because he had money and status, and I was just a home health aide. I understand. We're taught to respect wealth and power, to assume rich people must be good people, or they wouldn't be rich. But that's a lie. Money doesn't make you good, it just makes you powerful. And power without conscience is the most dangerous thing in the world. I went back to work at Helping Hands Home Care. My clients were glad to see me. Mrs. Chen, who's 89 and sharp as a knife, hugged me and said, "I knew you were telling the truth. Rich men always think they can get away with anything." I've learned things through this nightmare. Hard lessons that my mother tried to teach me, but that I had to learn myself through blood and terror and nearly losing everything. When I found Danny in that ditch, I thought I'd lost my son. And in the months that followed, I nearly did. I also nearly lost my home, my freedom, my life. There were nights I wanted to give up, days when the fear was so heavy I could barely get out of bed. Moments when Richard's power seemed so absolute that fighting felt pointless. But I learned something my mother always knew. The powerful stay powerful because we believe they're untouchable. They're not. Truth is stronger than money. Love is stronger than control. Family is worth fighting for even when the fight seems impossible. I won't pretend it was easy. Some nights the nightmares still wake me. I see Pierce pointing that gun. I hear the gunshot. I relive the terror. Trauma leaves scars that never fully heal. But I'm alive. Danny's alive. We survived. Richard Hastings had wealth connections, lawyers' power. He had a reputation and influence, and the ability to bend institutions to his will. But I had something he didn't. I had a mother who taught me to be smart. I had a brother who stood by me when everyone else walked away. I had love for my child that burned brighter than Richard's cruelty. If you're facing something that seems impossible right now, if you're fighting a system designed to protect the powerful while crushing the powerless, I want you to remember this document. Everything. Every conversation. Every interaction. Every threat. Keep records. Be meticulous. Because someday that documentation might save your life. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Don't let people with authority or money or status gaslight you into doubting what you know to be true. Your gut knows things. Your brain tries to rationalize away. Never stop fighting for what's right. The system isn't always fair. The law doesn't always protect the innocent. But truth has a way of rising to the surface if you're patient and brave enough to keep pushing it up. It might take time. It might cost you everything. But justice is worth fighting for. And forgiveness, that's the complicated part. I forgave the community for turning on me when Richard's lies seemed more believable than my truth. I forgave myself for not seeing the danger sooner, for not protecting Danny better. Whether Amanda deserves forgiveness, whether Danny will fully give it, that's not for me to decide. Each person has to walk their own path toward healing. Healing isn't about pretending nothing happened. It's not about erasing the past or moving on like the trauma never occurred. Healing is about moving forward without letting the past poison your future. It's about building something new on top of the ruins. It's about choosing every single day not to let the people who hurt you have power over your present. Danny is alive. He's healing slowly but surely. We're rebuilding our lives. Richard is in prison where he belongs. That's not revenge. That's justice. And justice, real justice, is worth every sacrifice I made to achieve it. My mother taught me to fight smart, but she also taught me something else. Know when you've won and let yourself rest. The fight is over. We survived. We're together. And that's everything. Last Sunday we had dinner at my house. Nothing special. Just pot roast with carrots and potatoes, green beans from Frank's garden, apple pie for dessert. We sat around my small kitchen table. 6 of us crowded together, passing dishes and telling stories and laughing about something silly Margaret's youngest daughter had done. Danny helped me serve dessert. As he handed me a plate, he squeezed my hand and said, "Thank you for never giving up on me." I squeezed back tears in my eyes. That's what mothers do. Outside my window, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Inside my small house, there was warmth and light and love. Not perfect, not without scars. Not the end of all struggles, because life is always complicated and healing is never finished. But we're together. We survived. We won. And that's everything. Now, I want to ask you something. Have you ever faced a situation where the system failed you, where powerful people seemed untouchable and you felt completely alone? How did you find the strength to keep fighting? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Sometimes knowing we're not alone in our struggles is what gives us the courage to keep going. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button. It helps others who might need to hear this message find it. And if you're not already subscribed, please consider subscribing to this channel. There are more stories like this, stories about ordinary people facing extraordinary challenges and finding the strength to overcome. Share this story with someone who might need to hear it. Someone who's fighting their own battle against injustice. Someone who feels powerless. Sometimes a story is enough to remind us that we're stronger than we think. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for caring about what happened to Danny and me. Thank you for being here. I wish you strength for your own battles, wisdom, to know when to fight and when to rest, and the courage to never give up on the people you love. Take care of yourselves and each other.